Hello, just to inform you all, we do mention in this Blooblet that we are due to record a Fallout podcast based on the first Fallout game. However, it just so happens that podcast is out now. It actually came out before this video, so please disregard the mention of the podcast being on the way. It is out. You can listen to it on SoundCloud and Spotify and all the other things. The reason we've taken so long to get out this Blooblet is because I suck. Enjoy!
Hello and welcome to another Blooblet, our semi-regular series of mini-episodes where we discuss anything that comes to mind that doesn't necessarily fit into a full episode, as it were.
Today we are discussing Dune, the new film starring Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac, Jason Momoa, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, Dave Bautista, Javier Bardem. There's a good few stars in this one, but directed by Denis Villeneuve. And written, well, the original novel that it's based on was written by Frank Herbert, and it's one of the classics of science fiction now brought to life in modern cinema, which is very cool because it's done pretty well for a big 3-hour movie about people on a desert with giant worms. It's done pretty well, and and we've all enjoyed it.
Yes.
And it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about it.
I want to preface this first by saying I've not read the book, and nor have I seen the original adaptation of Dune, which is the David Lynch movie. So going into this, I'm completely blind other than seeing the trailers in the cinema and thinking, this looks like such a cool movie. I had to go and see what the deal is with this. Came out pretty satisfied in spite of not fully grasping everything that happened. I loved how visually it looks amazing, and I was engrossed in what was going on, and I could kind of see where other franchises have taken inspiration from it. For example, TK, I could see where bits and pieces of Dune were taken or influenced to how the world of 40k is.
I'm glad you brought up that you hadn't read the book, because I watched it with someone that also hadn't read the book, and they loved it as well. And personally, as someone that has read the book, I do think it's a lot, like the film is a lot better than the book. I think for me, I read the book and I thought it's okay. I do feel like the story isn't that great, and the characters are a little bit empty. They're like empty vessels that are there basically to carry the world building. The world building and the concepts themselves in the book are amazing. But the way it's all presented in Dune is just, it doesn't interest me. It doesn't capture my imagination. And I've tried to say this to a Dune fan before, and they're like, oh, be careful what you say and stuff like that. Which I will say is, if Dune fans do not become Star Wars fans, some people will not like, Dune. It's not for everyone. But I will say the film, it's what it does is that it paces the story better. It takes one half of the book and serves it in one sort of serving, and it's easier to take in. They do a better job presenting the characters. The characters now have banter, which is not present in the book. There's not necessarily. I mean, it's not a film full of jokes like a MCU film, but there's a lot of dialogue that actually makes you it reminds you that these characters are actually human rather than like empty husks.
Yeah, I get. Feels like it focuses on Paul's journey, basically. So Paul's kind of like the protagonist.
Agreed.
Although not that the other characters don't get focused, but the film kind of hones in on that.
But Paul is just an empty husk of, he has no character whatsoever. In fact, even in the film, he doesn't really have much of a character, to be honest. But at the same time, at least in the film, it reminds me that he's a human. I also think that the film explains a lot of these interesting concepts better than the book. Like, almost immediately, right from the beginning, bam, you just know exactly what Arrakis is, what spice is, what who the Fremen are, and what the Fremen's suits do, like the water preservation suits. It explains all these really complex topics perfectly and seamlessly. So yeah, I give mad props to the film for that. So.
I really liked Paul's Wikipedia
it's so good.
recording thing that he used
So
to
good.
learn about the planet. That's great. It was like a cool little sci-fi concept, because one thing people were pointing out is that in the Dune world, there aren't any computers.
Yeah.
And that's the Mentat. So there's a guy whose eyes rolled backwards. He's the Mentat, and he has like all the world's information stored in his head.
Yes.
And it's because when Frank Herbert was writing about Dune in the 50s, like, computers were like this very novel thing that don't look anything like how computers look now.
The Mentats aren't really touched upon too much in the movie. I mean, obviously they're shown, as Ewan points out, but they're not really discussed or explained too much.
That's great. It means
it's brilliant.
Because everyone in that world knows what a Mentat is, so it's just something that you have to kind of just take in as part of the story. The only reason we learn anything about Arrakis from Paul's Wikipedia thing is because he doesn't live on Arrakis, and he's wanting to learn about it.
For sure.
And so we learn through him.
But I also do think that part 2, I won't spoil it, but it will. I'm almost going to guarantee it's going to explain what a Mentat is for reasons.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, but no, it's.
Yeah,
but I like that they didn't shove too much in, because there's a lot of concepts. They explained half of the concepts really well, and they dedicated a sufficient amount of time to each of them. I think the thing I love about this film is that it paces everything so perfectly. The story, the world building, and it does it in such a kind of perfect, digestible chunk. I haven't seen a film done this as perfectly, like a science fiction film do this as perfectly as it has done. It's just, I don't know, I just love the way that, like, from beginning to end, there wasn't a bit that felt like it dragged on. And I came out of the film just knowing so much about this Dune world. Like, I felt like it immerses you. It's such an immersive film. I love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
It's exciting when you've got people like my parents who come out of the film being genuinely excited for the story and being engrossed in the world. And you think, these are my parents are, they're middle-aged people who aren't like big sci-fi fans or anything like that. They don't obsess over nerd stuff like we do.
No.
And they were genuinely like invested in this world and wanted to know all about it and wanted to know more.
Yeah.
So, it's an exciting thing when that happens, when a film manages to get people into something that could be very alienating and very weird.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because when I left my screening, I think somewhere within my vicinity there was a boy and his dad walking out. They're excitedly saying, "Oh, when Dune 2 comes out, we've got to go and see it and find out what happens." And it reminds me of when I was around that age, and me and my dad went to see all of the Lord of the Rings films. And so it's kind of nice that kids have something kind of like that, Lord of the Rings experience, because there's not really been anything like that since Lord of the Rings, really.
A whole generation's kind of been denied that, because when we were growing up, we had, like, Lord of the Rings coming out.
We had the Star Wars prequels.
We had the
we had the prequels.
I know. They were exciting for us as kids when they came out.
Yeah.
But the exciting thing is well, I suppose what was really smart on the part of the filmmakers was that they cast Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya as the two romantic leads of, like, the series. I know Zendaya doesn't turn up that much in the film, but she's obviously being set up as a big part.
Yes.
And it is, like, they are literally the biggest, like, heartthrob stars at the moment for like younger audiences, because boys and their dads are going to see this film because it's a cool sci-fi weird film, but this will also bring in the teenage market as well, and people who wouldn't necessarily be interested. So it was very smart of them. Well done, filmmakers, for casting the two most popular actors at the moment. I was there for Oscar Isaac personally, because
he got shafted in Star Wars and X-Men. But one thing that did excite me,
he deserved a better role. Yeah.
I mean, one thing that struck me was, got me excited at least, was when it says the bad guy's headquarters, something like get the name of it, Getty Prime or something like that. And the reason it excited me is because in Reboot, Megabyte, the area that Megabyte controls was named after that. So it was called, so Megabyte lived in Getty Prime in Reboot, and I was like, oh yeah, that's where Megabyte sector got its name from. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, just quickly, speaking of influences, we know that So we're doing our next episode, like full episode, is going to be on Fallout, and
Yeah.
Fallout is heavily influenced by Dune. I mean, they're both desert worlds, but they actually name drop Mentat as a item you can use.
Yeah.
And they did originally plan to have Dune worms. So in Dune, there are these giant worms that pop out of the sand and well eat everything in their path. And that was originally going to be in Fallout, but then I think they decided not to implement it, probably because they realized it would just be going too on the nose.
Oh, I was just going to say one thing. I was going back to the casting, and I like the casting as you guys do as well. But this is going to be so fussy, but what the hell. Sometimes I think with a lot of these Hollywood actors that I've seen in so many other things, it kind of ruins the immersion for me a little bit. So seeing Jason Momoa, like, playing a character, I just think to myself, oh look, it's Aquaman. And or like, you know, who else? Like
Jeff Bridges, maybe, I guess comes under that.
Yeah, there's that as well. Yeah, it's just like
it didn't bother me at all. I didn't think.
It's not me kind of dissing the film. I think it's more of the fact that, like, I've just seen all these characters and everything else. I had the same thing with this film called 1917, where right at the end, Benedict Cumberbatch shows up at the end, and it's like, oh, okay.
I mean, sometimes like I think it depends on how well the actors are able to get into role.
Yeah.
Because one thing, like, kind of irrelevant, but the Batman's coming out, and Robert Pattinson is obviously known for the Twilight movies.
Yeah.
And thankfully, Robert Pattinson, I think he's a good enough actor that he's going to eradicate any memories that people may have of Twilight.
Talking about casting, one thing we did miss out on was there was the notorious Joe Dorowski's Dune that was being planned in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Dorowski had all these big ideas for what he wanted to do with Dune, and like none of it came to fruition. But I just wanted to bring up quickly, he was originally, so there's a character in Dune called Baron Harkonnen, who's the big villain monster man, and he's about 500 pounds. He's huge. He's so fat that he needs these flying things to hold all of his fat up, and so he can like move around. And sadly, we were robbed of Joe Dorowski managed to get Orson Welles to agree to play Baron Harkonnen for the film, which was never made. Oh man,
no.
what perfect casting that would have been.
That just, oh my god.
Can I tell you how he got Orson to agree? They found Orson in a Parisian restaurant, and initially Orson said, "No, I don't want to be in a stupid sci-fi film." And then Joe Dorowski said to him, "If I buy a meal for you from this restaurant every day during shooting, will you do it?" And he said, "Yeah, sure."
That's brilliant.
There you go. Yeah.
Does he buy the French champagne?
That's how they got him to do that Transformers movie.
Yeah, exactly. So he did do a sci-fi thing in the end. To be fair, he was Omicron. Yeah,
he wasn't really happy.
Unicron.
He finally became a planet.
He wasn't. I don't know if he was particularly happy about being a planet, though.
We need to talk about that movie one day because it is wild.
Yeah. One last thing. Also, I'm surprised you haven't mentioned this actually, but David Lynch made a Dune film, and most of the praises that I have for this movie are criticisms I have for the David Lynch movies, that it crams too much in one go. It doesn't explain anything and doesn't. In fact, if anything, it just kind of doesn't humanise Paul Atreides at all.
I just know it's got what's his name, Patrick Stewart in a pre-Next Generation, I believe, as well.
Yeah, it's also it's also very uncomfortable, that movie. Like not in a David Lynch spooky sort of way. It's just inappropriate. That film. Ewan knows.
There's some questionable stuff in the book which this modern film very correctly, quietly removed. But they depict all of that in the original David Lynch film.
No.
It is not good.
There are things in a David Lynch film that are not even in the book, but they included it anyway. They're like, yeah, we're just going to up this horrible.
Yeah, it's pretty
Pardon my
gross.
language, sorry.
To be fair, David Lynch is not a fan of that film either, so...
Yeah, no, he pretends it doesn't exist. So, there you go.
There's a lot we'd like to discuss, but we're just doing a quick episode. I'm down for more Space Witches in the second movie, but yeah, that's all I got. So
I really liked this movie. You need to watch again to kind of grasp everything.
Yeah.
I feel I was going to see it again yesterday, but the only screening was at like 8 o'clock, and I was like, yeah, I'll wait. I'll probably wait for the Blu-ray. But yeah, I'm excited for part 2. Roll on 2023 when it comes out. So we recently released our Resident Evil 2 episode, which is our Halloween special. We're planning to record our full-on Fallout episode next week, so that'll be by the end of the month. But in the meantime, check out all of our previous episodes if you haven't already, and check out our previous two Blooblets where we talk about the Matrix trailer and the Bizarre Mario casting.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for tuning in, guys. This will be on YouTube, so remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out all our other Bloobcast media as well.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Bloobcast. We've been Rob, James, and Ewan. You can find all of our episodes on bloobcast.com. We're also available on SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
We also have a YouTube channel where we produce shorter episodes called Blooblets, where we discuss the latest news in popular culture. You can find us on social media with @BlueCastPod on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please like, follow, and subscribe so you can get the latest updates on new episodes.
We also have an email address, which is bloobcast@outlook.com. So if you have any feedback or want to suggest things for us to review in our future episodes, please feel free to drop us an email and you'll get a shout out on the next episode. Please also rate and review us on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. More engagement helps us a lot. And finally, please share the podcast amongst your friends and family. Help spread the word so that the Bloobcast empire can become strong and mighty.